Hey guys, I am recording in the dark, which is why I am barely able to be seen, but we are going to continue with the Pythagorean theorem. So the first part of this section, you guys learned how to find the hypotenuse, which is the longest side, using that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we are on page 409 for this one. Again, if you don't have your book, you can take notes on a piece of paper, but I do need to see notes, so make sure you show those. Today we're going to look at finding the missing leg. So if we have a leg, if we have the hypotenuse but don't have a leg, we can still find that using the Pythagorean theorem as well. So here's an example. The plane takes off and travels 13 miles, and the plane's flight is the hypotenuse. If a plane takes off, if the plane is 12 miles from its takeoff point horizontally, what is its height? So now we are going to use the Pythagorean theorem again, but this time we know the hypotenuse and we don't know one of the legs. So we can say, let's see how long this takes here. Okay, I paused it because I didn't want you to have to watch the thing loading for forever, but we're going to start again with the Pythagorean theorem. And now in this case, c is 13. We could say this is a squared and x is b squared. So how you want to set that up is like this. 12 squared plus x squared equals 13 squared. And there are boxes to fill in on page 409. And then again, square the numbers, and then the next step, we want to solve for x. So just like solving equations, we're going to subtract 144 from both sides. So you end up with x squared equals 25. Now, to solve for x, whenever you have x squared, then we have to take the square root of both sides. And I believe we did this. We talked about when you square root both sides, then remember there's two answers, positive and negative, square root of 25. However, because we're talking about a length, then we only want the positive square root. So the height of the plane is 5 miles. So remember, when you square root both sides of an equation, you have to have two answers, positive and negative 5. But since we're talking about lengths of sides of triangles, then we are never going to really have to worry about the negative value. Excuse me. So for another example here, if we wanted to solve this, we would say we're missing this distance, okay? From Marcus to Amari's house is 2 miles. Marcus is this distance from the park. How far is Amari's house from the park? So we would say that, I'll just call this a. So we would say that a squared plus 1.5 squared equals 2 squared. Now it doesn't matter if you say 1.5 squared plus a squared, that doesn't matter, but the 2 has to be the c in the a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So the hypotenuse is always the number on the right hand side by itself. So that's the part you have to be careful of. This, I could make this b or a, it doesn't really matter. And then we are going to solve this. So we would have a squared plus 1.5 squared is going to be 2.25. And I think you guys can do 2 squared in your head, hopefully. And so we get a squared equals 1.75 if we subtract from both sides here. And then you just square root it. So in this case, if it doesn't end up being a perfect square, then you can just leave your answer. If I still on the Zoom. If I square root both sides of this, then we get a equals, and we don't have to worry about the negative. So I'm just going to look at this, and it is 1.32. And so you'll just give it as about 1.32 miles there. Okay. Now you'll also have to do this in 3 dimensions. So you have to be able to find the right triangle in a 3-dimensional object. We are going to be working with 3-dimensional objects in the future chapter. So this is going to be important to be able to find missing right triangle lengths. So I'll let you read that. So the side of the cone, the slant height is what we'll call this, 17, and the height of the cone is 8, and we want to find the radius of the cone. So again, that part's the only thing you have to do is see in 3 dimensions. Otherwise, the formula is the same, whether it's a 3-dimensional right triangle or 2-dimensional. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 8 squared plus, we'll call this b squared, equals 17 squared. If we subtract 64 from both sides, then you get b squared equals 225. And then the square root of 225 is 15. But again, because we can't have a negative square root, then it's going to be positive 15. So try the check problem on page 409. Also do the one on page 410 and see if you can find the missing leg lengths. And that's all we've got.